Welcome back, everybody, to the Flex Success podcast. You are joined by myself, Dee, my lovely partner, Liz.
Hi.
Nearly called you by your first name just to kick this podcast off with a banger.
What,
like full name.
It's the same as the Queen, and I only get called it by my mom when I'm in a lot of trouble.
Well, speaking of the Queen, we have the Queen of Muscle Nerds.
We do.
Yeah.
Hi, Queen Zoe.
My goodness. Hi.
Welcome to the How to Be Less Shit podcast.
We have had your hubby on twice, I believe.
Mm.
Yeah.
And we spoke about poo on both of them, sure. It's Luke. It's what you do.
You know what I was just about to say? That's like hard to follow on from, big shoes to fill, but it's not really, is it? When you're talking just about poo and probably penis jokes.
There was a lot of poo.
Yeah.
Poo, penis jokes, and how to create and use ATP. They all synthesize perfectly together.
Perfectly. Now,
what a combination.
Zoe, for listeners that hadn't listened to either of Luke's podcasts and don't really know what Muscle Nerds is all about and don't know you, maybe you can give us an intro to you and Muscle Nerds. So who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it?
Who am I? I am Luke's other half.
You are more than that.
Better half, exactly.
Better half. I am also I was just about to say the back end of Muscle Nerds, but that makes it sound
queen.
Like I'm the arsehole. Hey?
The Queen of Muscle Nerds.
The Queen of Muscle Nerds. Luke is the king. So we have been around for this September will be 7 years, which is nice when you look at the statistics of successful businesses.
I think it's 2 years, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's something really low hits the 2 years and then even less at the 5. So
I feel like try.
No, business is hard.
I'm joking.
The amount of times I've banged my head against the wall, I'm like, Dean, it's us or Flex.
Yeah.
But we've made it.
We've both done it.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. How many times I've had to say to myself, Zoe, are you going to be wife Zoe or are you going to be business partner Zoe?
Yeah.
And I always choose wife Zoe. I was like, the business can suffer. Like, I'm not going to choose the business over Luke.
They've both survived.
We got deep really quick. So we've been around, almost 7 years. I do, Luke, if you haven't listened to Luke podcast, I would turn this off right now, go and listen to them and then come back.
No, yours is going to be great. I can feel it.
I just won't talk about as much poo and penis. Hopefully.
Zoe is incredibly humble.
She is incredibly humble because you are a smart cookie and you have a real passion for training and nutrition and have done a fair amount of study. And you've positioned yourself as the... What was that?
I said I also study. I forgot about that. We have a gym too, and I work in the gym. So there's other things. I do that. I'm studying my Bachelor of Health Science. I've been doing that part-time since 2017 in nutrition. I started off doing it in naturopathy, but I found I was just avoiding all the herbal subjects. And I think it's mainly because of how it's approached in the school that in the school that I go to, in the college that I go to. It's quite fluffy.
I was going to say Eastern.
Yeah. And I have a lot of respect for that, but I just have a very, I love science. Like my favorite subjects are the really heavy science subjects. They make sense to me. I like logic. And so I've been doing that part-time since 2017. And then, we also own a small gym here in Brisbane. So I take all the evening classes there.
So what's your passion for your health science degree and for training? Where does that come from?
I don't know. Like, I think it was, I'll tell you, I might as well start back at the very start. When I decided I was going to be a personal trainer, it actually was in around about 2012, I think. And at the time I was working I did my first year of law and psychology at uni, and I was there in New Zealand. I had to move away to go to uni. So I was living in a small town and then I moved away to Wellington to go to uni there. Hated it. Wasn't ready. I don't even know why I chose law. Like English is my least favorite subject. Like I said, I love maths. I love science. I love things that have a black and white answer. That's just, it is or it isn't. Even though science, you could argue, is greater than mathematics. But anyway, and so moved back to Hawke's Bay, worked in legal, came over to Australia, was working in legal, but I went to a boxing gym, and the guy who took the boxing class, it was the owner of the gym because the guy who normally takes it was away. I just remember being like, I really want to be like him. Like he was so good. He was motivating, but it was firm, but nice. And so I went away, and that Saturday, it was a Saturday morning, and that Saturday I inquired for schools at fitness colleges, applied. I had my interview on Tuesday or Wednesday, got accepted that week, and then got offered a job like the next day, like the boot camps and stuff that I was doing at the time, because I started off in like the cardio.
I think we all started there. Yeah.
I don't think, is there any other way in? Well, now there is, but anyway, back wasn't that long ago, 10 years ago. And I started training. I got offered a job. The boot camp I went to, the lady calls up and she said, I've heard you're studying Cert 3 and 4. And I said, I am. And she goes, oh, good, because I'm ringing to offer you a job. So I started work practice. I can never figure out how to turn that off. I started practicing, what's the word? What am I trying to say? I started work experience at the same time I started my Cert 3 and 4. And I remember at the time just being like, there is more to clients' results than the 45 minutes I get with them. And I'm very inquisitive in nature. So I was just like, what is that? Like, how can they get better results? Like, what about the other 23 hours and 15 minutes of the day that they're not with me? What are they doing? What can they do? And that's how I ended up meeting Luke, because I went to a biosig course thinking that was going to answer all my questions. And so just from that point on, I've always just been super inquisitive. It's not enough for me to be told something works. I need to know why and how, and what instances it doesn't, and what instances it does. And, so that's why when we decided we were going to settle in Australia, because Luke's American, he's from, Texan, I'm going to get in trouble for that. I said to him, can I study? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So I started my Bachelor of Health Science, and initially I needed to do something for myself, because when we started Muscle Nerds, I very much felt like I was riding the coattails of Luke. Like, it was the Luke Lehman show. I mean, it still is, but I feel less so now because I pull my weight behind the scenes more. But at the time I was like, I just need to do something for me that's mine, that no one can turn around and say, well, you're just there because of Luke. So I didn't feel like I was just handed the life that I had. Like, I really wanted to do something for me. So that's why I started that, the combination of just being really inquisitive by nature and just needing to know more than what most people will deem sufficient. And then, because I just really wanted to do something for myself, and I'm really happy with how it's going along. It's just the time. It's a long process. It's been 5 years, and I've probably got another 4 to go.
Okay, cool. So what's happening with Muscle Nerds right now? What are you guys working on?
We've got a lot that we're working on, actually. There's one thing that I can only touch on really briefly, and then there's one thing I can chat about. So we've got our online clients that we have, Luke, and then we do have a contractor coach, David, who takes on a couple as well, which is great. So we've got our online coaching services. We have online education. At the moment, our biggest course, or our main course, is a program design course that we have. It's got over 140 hours of content. So it's a really big course. We used to market it as like a 10-week online course, but now it's just like, you sign up and it's yours forever, because you're going to want to go through it plenty of times, and you're going to want to take your time. And then we also are in the final stages of releasing a online hypertension course, which Luke has put together, and it should be up for pre-sale hopefully by the end of next week.
Oh, great.
And then I'm also working on a computer software, which I haven't told anybody about, which is really exciting.
Is that the one you can't talk about very much?
That's one I can't really talk about at the moment, but it's going to be, there's nothing like it in the industry. So
Okay.
I'm super excited about it, but hopefully towards the end of the year, we'll be able to start talking about it more. But yeah, so we've got a lot going on.
Good. And so why the hypertension course?
So when we very first started Muscle Nerds, Luke had come from a background of like Poliquin group. So he mentored under Charles Poliquin, and all of the education, majority of the continuing education that you could do in the industry at the time was very elite focused. So it was, how to get someone thick skin lean, or it was athletic development. And people would go to these things because they're really cool to learn. But then they would take these protocols and they would go home and they would try and apply it to, their client that was a CEO, 65-year-old CEO of a big business who had 3 kids and high blood pressure and just stress to the gills, and they'd wonder why it wasn't working. So when we started Muscle Nerds, Luke said, I want to teach how to train general population people. I want to teach about, how to get the best results with as he likes to call it, Mary Muffin Top. A stressed mum of 3 who works 45 hours a week, and like he says, and they're here 8-year-old smoking crack. So, one of those people that just is not going to dedicate their life to training and recovery and their nutrition. And the main focus of our education from that point on was always around stress, the physiology of stress, how it alters your response to diet and training, how to measure it, how to manage it, how to mitigate it, and all that sort of stuff. One of the things that we found that was a good marker that we used in terms of stress was always high blood pressure or blood pressure readings. So we, do resting heart rate, HRV, and all that sort of stuff. And blood pressure, the more Luke trained and taught people in regards to the general population and the stress side of stuff, the more he saw the improvements and the power that personal trainers have over blood pressure in regards that come from training and nutrition. And the more he looked into it, the more that we realized how dangerous high blood pressure is and how many people have it. And the difficulty with hypertension is that it's more often than not asymptomatic. So if you don't ever go to the doctor for anything, you wouldn't know you had it until you drop dead. And that's the problem. Is I don't know how many times, like especially my parents, they're like mid 60s, and this sounds awful, but like a lot of their friends and acquaintances are starting to have strokes, heart attacks, and all that sort of stuff. And every single time I get told about one, it's like, oh, it just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like they, they're healthy, like they had, they just had this heart attack out of nowhere. And I was like, it never comes out of nowhere. And it's called the silent killer because, again, asymptomatic leading up to it, but it's not silent if you know what to look for. So the more statistics you look into, the more you realize that like high blood pressure is a leading cause of death in the world. It's from what I remember after editing all of the videos at the moment, it kills more people globally than almost all infectious diseases combined. Wow. Now that statistic was pulled prior to COVID, so it might be a little bit skewed now. But when you look at it as its own category, because usually when you look at death statistics, hypertension is tied in with cardiovascular disease. But when you look at it as its own statistic and its own group, it is the 3rd biggest killer in the world. Hypertension. So cardiovascular disease, cancer, then hypertension. And it's so easily influenced by trainers and trainers, coaches, and nutritionists as well. So that's why. And it's also our tagline. We have a trademark tagline for Muscle Nerds, which is putting the health back in health and fitness. And it's just stuff that's not talked about.
So the crazy thing with blood pressure too is you go to a doctor nowadays, and instead of them referencing against the gold standard, they reference against the population average.
And as if the average is something to aspire to.
Like I've had clients that have gone in and have pulled a 135 over 80. Pick a number, and the doctor's like, yeah, that's cool. It's like within norm. And he's like, shouldn't I be closer to the 120? He's like, no, unless you're at 140 plus, I'm not interested.
Hey, actually, quickly, I think we're maybe assuming some knowledge for people that are like, what does D mean by 125 over 80? Could you maybe describe systolic over diastolic, or Zoe, whoever, and just talk about like what blood pressure is maybe and why it's so dangerous?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So when you get a blood pressure reading, you have it's usually given as a fraction. So 120 over 80. Gold standard blood pressure is 115 over 75. That's like optimal gold standard. The difficulty though of giving gold standards in these optimal numbers is if people often, especially if you've got like a type A or a neurotic type person, and if they strive for that number, and if they are 116 over 76, they're like, no, I must get it down. But like, really, that's fantastic. So the number at the top is your systolic blood pressure, and that is the amount of force that is exerted against your arteries when your heart pumps blood through it. And then the bottom number is your diastolic, and that's the pressure that is against your arteries when you're at rest. And there's a number of reasons as to why that pressure might increase. And when you do have higher pressure against those arteries, especially long term, it can cause little micro tears and damage. And then the body does damage control to that by plaquing. And your arteries can become stiff, they can become clogged, and then that exacerbates the problem even more. And then before you know it, you've got clogged arteries, and you can't pump blood around your body as efficiently as you should be able to. But yeah, the problem with the doctors is that's just a problem in everything. I had a friend go to the hospital because for a host of other reasons, but her hemoglobin was like 72 or something like that, like really, really low. And they wouldn't give her a blood transfusion or iron transfusion because it wasn't at 70.
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
Like, okay, so I understand how you would have, like points of when you act and when you don't, but come on. And it's the same with blood pressure. And the thing is, even if he went back next time and it was 137 over 85, and then he goes back and it's 139 and they still won't do anything, clearly it's trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Like, why not stop the trend, or at least try and that's another thing, is when I was looking online as we were putting the course together and I was researching what other hypertension courses were available, all of them that I could find were given almost like at medical conferences, and it was more about like medication and management of. I could not find anything in regards to like anything to do with lifestyle or nutrition. Obviously there's research, but in terms of an actual course or education around it, there was nothing in terms of prevention or anything like that. So it was just, we feel a really needed a really needed course in the industry, especially because if you do the wrong type of training for someone with hypertension, you can exacerbate the problem even more, which should inadvertently be putting your client more at risk and doing the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing as a trainer. So
yeah. I used to manage a gym, it feels like another lifetime ago, and before any members were allowed to come into the gym, I had to do a health assessment, and blood pressure was obviously one of them. And there are a few reasons why I would have to not allow somebody immediate unsupervised access to the gym. They would have to go to a GP first. And just this risk assessment basically was like, if they had a heart attack and died on the gym floor, the people that own the gym wouldn't be liable. And it's interesting because I had to ask a few people to go and get a medical clearance from their GP because of blood pressure. And often I found people weren't taking it seriously. They got the shits with me. And they didn't really understand the problem. And I guess if somebody has the shits, they're not really responsive to a polite explanation. So I do think it's needed, not just, prevention, but also, what's the word I'm looking for? Awareness. Yeah, there you go.
Like, just to understand. And that's another thing. Luke actually put a phenomenal quote in the course that I made, a quote, and it said, for some reason people, and I made it in a post, and it said, for some reason people don't take hypertension seriously, and it's exactly why it's so dangerous. There was a study done in 1985 where they studied how high people's blood pressure got through performing certain exercises, and they found that the more muscle that you use, obviously the higher your blood pressure goes, and the less muscle that you use, the less it goes. That makes a lot of sense. But the number one machine that raised blood pressure the highest was the leg press. Guess what blood pressure rose to when they were performing the leg press?
I'm going to say somewhere around 200.
No. Do you think so?
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Okay.
If you Valsalva on a leg press, everything explodes.
Yeah. Okay.
Including your puffer valve. I just wanted to bring in something to do with the bum.
Okay, now that I'm thinking about numbers, and I've taken people's blood pressure at rest, but granted, probably they're pretty unhealthy, and it was.
Come on now, shoot a number already.
I might even go above yours.
Oh, now you've shit-canned it, and now you're being influenced.
Now I'm thinking about, exactly. I'm going to go 110. Sorry, 210.
210. It was 480 over 350.
Amazing.
What? How is someone not dead at that?
Exactly. And obviously it's transient, like as soon as you stop, it lowers. But also even performing, so the exercise that caused the lowest raise in blood pressure was a single arm bicep curl.
Of course.
But even that raised it to 200 and something over something else.
Wow.
I can't remember what that one was. But I just had to double check that it was, I knew it was 480 over something, but I couldn't remember the diastolic. So it's 480 over 350 is what it got to in a leg press. So if you have a client that's got high blood pressure outside of the gym, normally the last thing you want to do is go and put them on leg press. And again, it's transient as they're doing it. As soon as they stop, it lowers. But if you do that for months and you have that accumulative effect, you're doing way more damage than you need to be doing.
The leg press is also likely one of the first pieces of leg equipment you would put a gen popper on, because they can kind of lock in and just go hard. And most PTs are just trying to make people go hard.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's exactly right. Most PTs, I was actually going to write a post on this. I have every time I think of an idea for a post, like I email myself and I have a notebook full. And one of the things I have in there is like anyone can make a hard workout. And that just seems to be the goal of most PTs, is just like, how am I going to fuck them up?
Yeah, because they use this soreness as a metric for success, so that the client thinks, I got a great workout in. But I just want to touch on a couple of things because we've not glossed over them, but we've mentioned them a few times. One was the silent killer. I think that's a really pertinent saying to remind people of, because of what you then also spoke about mechanistically, of how if you have high blood pressure, eventually you then get plaque as a defense mechanism the body sets up to basically fix the tears in the arterial walls, which then creates more stiffness. And this is exactly why people do not recognize blood pressure as a problem, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't see or feel this. They just are normal.
And it
for the
happens so
most part.
slowly.
Happens so slowly. And then
It's
in
not
inverted
an
commas,
emergency.
all of a sudden,
All of it out of nowhere.
that plaque
You
dislodges
get a
and
heart
they,
attack out of nowhere.
yeah.
Yeah, what was I going to say about that? I was thinking while you were speaking
Well,
about
did you have a
it.
question about that?
Well, no, I just wanted to reiterate the fact that this is why it's called the silent killer. It's the plaque buildup. It's the fact that you don't notice it. You'll feel otherwise relatively healthy or quote unquote normal. And you're going to keep feeling like that. But what we're saying here is like, now you've got to consider the fact that this may exist without you feeling like it. And potentially the exercise you're doing that you think may make you healthier could potentially be putting more strain on it. And as we get through this podcast of maybe some other reasons why people may have high blood pressure, that you actually have to be less aware or less put less importance on the symptom and more importance on finding out whether or not you have an issue to begin with, and then getting at this prophylactically before it's too late.
Have either of you? Oh, you go, Zoe.
No, I was just about to say the other reason people don't take it seriously is because most doctors don't either, which is mind blowing. But another statistic that Luke pulled is, I think it's like 50% of hypertensive patients don't fill their medication script. And I reckon one of the reasons would likely be when you take blood pressure medication, there's like a few different categories of types, because there's two systems in the body that regulate your blood pressure. One is they do it through fluid volume. So your kidneys and fluid retention and all that sort of stuff. And then you've got your cardiovascular system and your sympathetic nervous system, which drives that. So those are the two systems. So blood pressure medication can work on one and or both. And you have so many side effects that come with that. And so you start taking a blood pressure medication for a condition you have that presents no symptoms. And then now all of a sudden you're getting dizzy, you've got impotence, you can't perform in the bedroom, you're having all these side effects, and you're like, fuck that medication right off, because I'll just go back to being normal again and fine again. So yeah.
Except then they get rebound hypertension tenfold too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it needs to be taken more serious anyway. And that's what we're trying to do in the industry, is just educate. Luke's written it and presented it so it's not just applicable to coaches, whereas all of our other courses, we're speaking to coaches, whereas this time he's speaking as to anyone who has high blood pressure that wants to do the course will be able to understand and feel like they're not, supposed to do it. And then coaches will get a lot out of it as well, because of all the information that's presented in terms of training and training methods and nutrition and supplementation protocols and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I imagine that'll be tricky to market if it's not like something that everyone's trying to do. You know, like everyone's trying to lose weight. That's easy.
Is it going to be a fix your blood pressure in 6 weeks challenge?
And then it'll be 3 weeks, and then it'll be 10 days, and then it'll be like a 7-day blood pressure.
Before and after pictures of your blood pressure.
Then it'll be like 20 minutes out on the elliptical, and you're sweet, you're sorted.
And then it'll be a competition of who drops the diastolic and systolic the most, and the winner at the end gets some fried chicken.
and then we'll have this hypotensive. What were we talking about? What did you ask? Sorry.
I just
market.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So what's really interesting is we've teased it a little bit on our social media, and the amount of people that have replied and been like, when are you releasing this? Like, I've got so many clients with high blood pressure, or I've got high blood pressure, or my mum's got high blood pressure. And I think there are some really sobering statistics about it, like obviously it being the third biggest killer. So we can, if we can really try and highlight the dangers of it, but then I get a bit hesitant of that, because it's almost like we're fear mongering. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's something that you need to be scared of, but it really is something that you need to be worried of. But the thing is, it's so easy to fix. Like, it's so easy. It just takes a bit of work, but I shouldn't apply easy with simple with easy. It's simple to fix. It's probably not easy for a lot of people.
Mm.
But the thing is, they can really take that. Majority of people with hypertension can really take that into their own hands and lower it.
Yeah.
Lower
I don't
the
mind
risk.
fear mongering. Most people have to have the heart attack before they fucking do anything anyway.
I
so-
wouldn't say it's fear mongering though, because I'm not sure what the exact definition is, but my understanding of fear mongering is like creating fear in something
Yeah.
that doesn't exist.
Doesn't-
Currently,
yeah.
people should be fearful of this thing
Yeah.
and they're not. So it's more like just creating awareness. But if I remember back to uni and looking at the effectiveness of various social campaigns, obviously drink driving is a huge killer. And
Mhm.
we were looking at the stats behind social campaigns, whether it would be like, do the right thing and don't drink and drive because, you know, whatever. Or there was this ad that showed a drink driver hitting a mum, pushing a pram, and it was really graphic. And they showed the response between the two ads, and the one that actually viscerally made people feel emotions and understand like how dangerous this thing is was the one that had more positive effects. So look, thinking about that to your hypertension campaign, trying to market your product,
Yeah,
I
it
would
could be
I
fantastic.
would say that you're doing the right thing because you're trying to create good. And if part of that is making people really feel it, then you should.
And I
Yeah.
guess it's also, you know, the way most people are more responsive to the feeling of losing something than gaining something a lot of the time. And so like there's a really good example that I heard I was at a business course, and the example that he gave was like, say you're in bed at 2:00 in the morning and you're fast asleep and your phone rings and you answer it and someone goes, there's someone in your driveway stealing the tires off your car. You'd be like, what the fuck? And you'd get up and you'd be like, oi, what are you doing trying to steal my tires? But if someone did the same thing, called you at 2 a.m. in the morning, fast asleep, you answer your phone and you're like, hey, the tire store down the road's having it, like giving away free tires. You'd be like, fuck off. Like, you know what I mean? So it's, you have that, and it's actually called something. I can't remember what it is, but I think, yeah, if we can market it in terms of like, you don't want to lose your life, you don't want to lose your loved ones, as opposed to like, hey, gain this knowledge and education around hypertension and get more clients. It's kind of like, I think I know what I would respond more to, as well as being like, oh my God, I don't want to die.
I feel like it should be like a dichotomy between someone getting hit by a car and then like a dad just carking it on a football field with his son while kicking a football, and say one you have control over, one you don't.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah. Oh,
We want royalties for that ad.
Can you imagine? Hey, son, kick the ball, and then you just off he goes.
Yeah, good ad.
Yeah.
Dean, you're a marketing genius. Now, Zoe.
One may say that I'm creative.
Yeah, I always say Dean.
Yeah, me, I'm the one.
I always say that Dean doesn't have a creative bone in his body, but I realize that saying that only perpetuates his belief that he's not creative. So I need to act
I'm
less.
absolutely not. But occasionally a gem will come to me and I'll rinse it until it's done.
It's amazing. So I'm going to act not so surprised when you come up with creative things, because I want to foster this creativity within
Yeah, you really need to stop streaking after every time I come up with something, because it's that exciting.
But just getting back to blood pressure, you mentioned that it's in people's hands. It's so easy to change. I know that it would be ridiculous for me to be like, oh, share all those things, because there's so much to say. But maybe you could share a couple of points with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the course that we've got is 14 hours of content. So I can check
We've got time.
Yeah, just summarize that in 2 minutes. Go.
So like I mentioned before, right, there's the two systems within your body that regulate blood pressure. You've got your cardiovascular system and you've got your kidneys, as in like your fluid retention. The cardiovascular system is the easiest one to manipulate through exercise, clearly. And this is where cardio, the dreaded C word, comes in, and stress management. So the cardiovascular system, especially the mechanisms of it which raise blood pressure, is your sympathetic nervous system, right? So it's literally, it vasoconstricts, I think is the right one, not vasodilates. No, it vasodilates them, one of the two anyway, and it raises your blood pressure. And that's from your adrenaline and noradrenaline, right? So if you manage, and most people we know are running around stressed, me, hi, right here. And like Luke says, you 8-year-old smoking crack, you hate your boss, you're fighting with your partner, you've got mortgage and finance worries. Like stress just doesn't go away for us anymore. So learning stress management techniques, eliminating the stresses that you can, and then trying to manage the ones that you cannot, is a big one. And then the other thing is your cardio, because when you do a lot of weight training, one of the side effects of that is you've got your left ventricular hypertrophy, right? So that thickens the muscle of, do you have that?
Mild, but I've reversed some of it.
Yeah. So you can reverse it. And so that thickens the muscles of the left ventricle of your heart, which is the part that pumps the oxygenated blood out and around your body. The thing is, when that thickens, it makes the chamber smaller, so you aren't able to hold as much blood in it. The endurance athletes have the opposite thing, where their chamber is bigger. So you need to find like a nice balance between the two. So if you focus a lot on like your strength training and your weights training, while resistance training is really good, and we obviously are huge advocates of it, if you are in a hypertensive state, you just want to be mindful of doing anything that makes you strain too much. So
like
you want to try and avoid those. Yeah, like a leg press. Anything like anything that's like multi-joint or multi-muscle movements. You kind of want to go like ice. It's a really good time to do like your structural balance type stuff, like your unilateral work, not working to like I think the one that Luca advised was, keeping a good 3 to 4 reps in reserve, really not going to that full strain or struggle. And then incorporating cardio. And the thing is, you want to keep it like the low and slow, the really boring stuff. So if you can, 60 to 90 minutes a day, if you've got the time and the luxury. But then if you don't, and you need to try and compact it in, like don't do HIIT training, because it's also shown to increase your blood pressure, but try and keep it under lactate threshold as well. And then that's showing that's able to remodel the heart as well. So that can and the initial reduction that you get in hypertension from doing that is usually from your the nervous system, and that's really beneficial. But you need to continue doing it until you get to the point of like you're able to remodel the heart almost in a really simple. Well, it's exactly what's really happening, isn't it? So cardio. And then in terms of diet, like, there's all that sodium, potassium, there's a sodium argument, but I think sodium has more of an effect on your blood pressure if you're sodium sensitive, which I believe it's about 10% of the population that is. So you also just want to be mindful of your sodium potassium ratio. And then to do that, just eat more vegetables, eat a healthier diet. Like don't eat so much processed stuff, because that's where most of your sodium comes from. Like most people don't heavily salt the food that they make themselves at home. It comes from like, and this isn't, so funnily enough, we had a guy at the gym who has got really high blood pressure, like it's 180 over something. He's on blood pressure medication, wasn't going down. So we were saying to him, look, you have to go back to your doctor and try a different one, because what you're on isn't working. So he went and changed his blood pressure medication, but then he got a heap of side effects with that one. And anyway, he's quite a big guy. He's French. He's a patisserie chef as well. So he's he's a patisserie chef. Need I say more? And
he's getting high in his own supply.
Yeah, well, he said to me at one point, he goes, the only time that I've ever gotten any results is when I did light and easy. And you're like, fantastic, because it's because it's controlling your calories. But the problem is a lot of those prepackaged, pre-made meals are then high in sodium. So it's kind of like, which is the lesser of two evils at the moment? Like ideally it'd be good if you could do calorie control and you make your own food. But if that's not going to happen, what's the next easiest option? So you've got like to look at your practical versus optimal. So optimally, yeah, you just want to eat veggies and lean meats until you get it down. But if you're not able to do that, what's the practical thing that you can do? And if it's light and easy, it's light and easy. So there's extra heaps of veggies and do your cardio.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if you shop at Coles or not, but before I left Australia, I always keep something called emergency meals in the fridge or freezer. So if I, for whatever reason, are caught out without prepared meals, I have an emergency meal in the fridge. Coles have a line of pre-made meals in the freezer aisle called Perform. And and they're actually quite low in sodium, high in protein.
Black ones?
Yes.
Yeah, they're black, and they're split into 3 different color codes. There's like meals below 400 calories, meals below 600 calories, and meals like 600 calories and above. So they're color code. So that might be something helpful for your client.
Yeah, because I believe the research supports that it's primarily sodium dependent hypertension, even more so than ratio specifically. You mentioned potassium and sodium, right? Like, I think they get a greater effect by decreasing sodium than you will increasing potassium to match.
Yeah, well, a lot of the way the blood pressure medications work is they inhibit the reabsorption of sodium, so in the kidneys. So where sodium goes, water follows. So by inhibiting the reabsorption of sodium back into your system, it's excreted out in your urine. So it's like basically it's a diuretic. And so then water follows it, and that's one of the ways that you lower your blood pressure. And that's obviously through the kidneys' function of fluid retention and fluid control. Losing weight is probably, well, fat is, or just losing size is usually a really big one as well. So I know that there's some, the more fluid you have, the higher blood pressure, the more blood volume you have. And I know that there's some doctors that say that for every pound of pound of fat that you have, it's about a mile of capillaries that have to, that are to service that extra pound. So if you're 50 pounds, which is only 25 kilos overweight, or have extra, that's my extra fat, that's like 50 miles. I don't even know what that is in kilometers. 80?
Like 80, yeah, I would say 80.
So there's that extra blood volume, there's that extra blood pressure. So I know that, Luke has got some statistics on how much, if you lose 10% of your body weight, it can drastically reduce your hypertension and blood pressure readings as well. So there's a host of things that you can do collectively. And I think it's important to point out that it needs to be a multifaceted approach. Like, it has to be almost like combination therapy. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just find a supplement that's going to fix it. You can't just find a diet that's going to fix it. You can't just find a training program. Like, you have to do all these things collectively to lower it. And another interesting thing is with hypertension, if you go to the doctor and if you're diagnosed hypertensive, 90 to 95% of cases that are diagnosed hypertensive are diagnosed as primary hypertension. So you've got primary and secondary hypertension. Primary hypertension is diagnosed when there is no discernible cause. So if there is no discernible cause, there is no discernible treatment. And so that's when you're given blood pressure medication to manage it. But the thing is and it's like 90 to 95% of cases, they're saying, we don't know, we cannot determine exactly what is causing this. Whereas secondary is like, if you do cocaine every weekend and that's what's causing it, or if you've got a kidney disease or anything like that, or anything that they know is what's raising your blood pressure. So majority of cases that are diagnosed as primary. And the thing that will lower primary hypertension is lowering your risk factors of hypertension. And risk factors of hypertension, majority can be controlled by personal trainers. So it's obesity, it's reducing alcohol, it's eating more vegetables, it's smoking, it's all the things that we can have an influence on our client to do. Lack of exercise and a sedentary lifestyle is a risk factor for hypertension. So there's all these things that we can do as trainers to lower the risk of someone's hypertension, and lowering the risk of hypertension is what mainly lowers primary hypertension.
I always go by the saying, if you can, you should. And in this case for personal trainers, it might be a little bit harder. But if you can, you should. I think, like Spider-Man says, I think I quoted this in Dr. Mike II's podcast. What is it? With great something comes.
With great responsibility, there comes great responsibility. Look how good we are.
What's Spider-Man's quote? With great what comes great.
You are asking the wrong person.
I think it's with great power comes great responsibility. And I think personal trainers have a lot of power over a client's behavior.
Huge influence. And the thing is, even if you're unable to get your client to do the things they need to do to lower it, at least know what not to do to make it higher. Like, I think that's probably, it's like, don't put them on leg press, or at least don't put them on do anything. Like, don't
check their blood pressure.
Yeah. Don't do 3, 2, 1 like wave loads with them, like the last thing you want to do. So there are sneaky things that they might be able to incorporate slowly, to help them lower it, or at least not exacerbate it.
Because that's the other tough thing though too, is people are coming to a trainer for a particular result, and a lot of trainers fear not training them hard, like we said, like they're just going for a hard workout
because of client expectations.
But I mean,
we get that at the gym even.
And we I was going to say, if I want to be stronger as a client and you tell me I'm going to do a one-legged dumbbell RDL that's contralaterally loaded or something, and it's not going to be that hard because I've got shitty blood pressure, I'm going to be like, well, that's not what I want. You're like, do you also not want to die? Maybe put that on the question. Do you want to die? If they say no, then you can say it's actually a goal.
I actually saw a phenomenal post that I'm going to actually read out to you because it is brilliant. As long as I can find it. Anyway, basically spoke about this guy. Yeah, so this guy says, I go to the gym a lot. I have a great coach. I lost a lot of weight and I'm in the best shape of my life. The gym costs $250 a month. It's expensive. A friend of mine makes fun of me for this, and he's told me many times that I'm overpaying because he goes to Planet Fitness. He pays $10 a month. With that said, he really goes, and when he does, he half-asses it. He's overweight. I was considering finding a cheaper gym. I started going through my finances for the month, and I was on a call with my financial advisor, and I brought this up to him. He proceeded to give me some of the best behavioral finance advice I've ever received. And he said, and this is what I think is incredible. He said, your friend can't believe that you pay $250 a month to be in great shape. I can't believe your friend is willing to stay fat for $240 a month.
I love it.
Like, fuck, that is good. So if you're debating an expense, like inverse the cost and the benefits. So am I willing to pay $250 a month in order to be in shape, or am I willing to be out of shape in exchange for $240 a month? And I was just like, that is good.
Is it weird that gave me goosebumps?
And Planet Fitness fucking give their members pizza.
And they have escalators going up to the gym instead of stairs.
We have a Planet Fitness membership.
Do
we
you?
signed up. Yep. There's one around the corner from our home. Just for ease. We never go. We signed up to Worlds like not that long ago. So we'll start going there instead and get rid of our Planet Fitness. But
There's a Planet Fitness in Australia?
Yeah. Yeah, they're starting to pop up a few places.
I've
now.
not seen them before.
But we've got their black membership. So we get like these saunas, these spray tan machines, massage chairs, like all that sort of stuff. So Luke would go and use the sauna now and again. But now we sign up to a Worlds that has one.
Is sauna code for spray tans? I'm pretty sure it is.
He's been for one spray tan. Luke has been for it's just one of those like the Ross on Friends where it's.
Yeah. What do you do with your junk? The spray tan? Because you don't want like a cock and balls.
You'd still just put a sock on it.
No, but like it's up against your leg, right?
He did that though. I reckon he just would have gone nudie.
But do you have to like lift it up and push it to the side?
When you got your spray tan at Planet Fitness, did you go naked?
For which one?
At Planet Fitness.
Tan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got a tanned penis?
Yeah, of course you want a tan penis.
He said, of course you want a tanned penis.
You know what you definitely want to do? You want to leave the penis over the ball so it just tans the top of the penis, and then you have a white line when you lift it up.
I think
Zoe, I'm ready.
I must say, this has been my favorite part of the podcast so far, just thinking about like how you would tan a cock.
I just watched that Ross episode the other day.
Do you think that Trump has
I'm an 8?
Do you think Trump has an orange dick? Because he definitely gets spray tans.
I reckon he probably just does from here up.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon.
With décolletage and above.
Yeah,
he would have a white penis because his belly would go over it. He'd have to lift the belly, or he'd have a tan crease.
That's true.
Or his tanner tells him he's tanned his penis, and he wouldn't be any the wiser because he can't see it.
He needs to do your course for sure. That guy would have insane blood pressure.
I don't know. He thinks he's pretty
even
good.
if he was fit and in shape, like even Obama probably would, just from the stress you're under of running America or attempting to run America.
I think you're wrong with this. I think he would have. I think not only would Trump have great blood pressure, but he'd have the greatest blood pressure that's ever seen in the world. He'd have the blood pressure of a 2-year-old.
The best blood pressure. He's got the best words and the best blood pressure.
He does not have very good personal skills, does he?
Look,
he has the best personal skills, the greatest personal skills ever.
He'll tell you that himself.
But anyway, what I was saying is when we went to Planet Fitness and signed up, they have this alarm on the wall. I can't remember what it's called.
Is it the clunk alarm?
Something. Oh, it's not clunk. It actually is. It's calling. It's a bad name to the person who clunks. Like it's not the effect, it's the person. I can't remember what it is. Like say it's like the jerk alarm or something like that. It's not, but something similar. And the guy goes to Luke, do you know about the jerk alarm? And Luke goes, yeah. And Luke goes, I thought this was a non-judgmental place. Because they were fully just like saw Luke and was like, this guy is not a Planet Fitness person. Like he's probably going to throw weight. Because I think he said, you're not allowed to slam your weights around. And like, do you know about the jerk alarm? And Luke's like, yeah, I thought this was a non-judgmental place.
I love it.
Why are you judging me?
Isn't that funny? When Dean and I were coming back from Singapore, was it? The lady said, do you have anything to declare?
This is Australian customs.
Yeah, Australian customs. Do you have anything to declare? We were like, nope. She was like, so you haven't brought anything back? No protein powders or anything? I was like, do you ask everyone if they bring back protein powders or are you judging me? Because look, I understand it's a positive judgment because you think I look fit, but I still don't appreciate it.
Yeah, that was good.
And
He's like, really, really, no protein powder? No,
Believe it or not, no.
I ate it all over there. I was that prepared.
Which is actually true. That's hilarious. We finished all our protein powder while we
I'm not a
Why
monster.
do I look like I have leftover protein powder?
You're like, no, it's gone. It's in here, bitch.
look at these guns.
Yeah, blood pressure is really important.
Yeah.
This is
Absolutely.
another thing. Yeah, laughter. Have a good time. Find some periods of quietness. I always talk to people about blood pressure, and I hate using the word because I think it's misappropriated a lot of the time, even by myself. And the word's holistic, right? In that blood pressure truly is something that requires a holistic approach.
Nutrition, stress.
There is some nutrition,
fitness.
there's some stress, there's some hoo-hoo, wah-wah stuff where you might be telling them, hey, like, could you maybe read a book before you go to bed? Or maybe don't yell at your wife tomorrow.
A gratitude diary.
Yeah, gratitude diary, like heaps of things. It is all encompassing.
Have either of you read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
I've audio listened to it.
Okay. Do you remember the section where, what's the author's name again? I forget.
I have no idea. I just wanted to say the guy who wrote Atomic Habits, James someone, but it's not him.
James Clear. No, not James Clear. Sorry, let's call him Bob. So Bob, the author,
Anyone I know.
it's definitely not Bob. Do you remember the section where he talks about life tasks in 4 different categories? So one category is unimportant and like not an emergency. This might not be the words that he's using.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then he talks about things that are very important, but not
Urgent.
an emergency. And then there's things that are important and urgent, so on and so forth.
Yep.
So things that are important and urgent is like, you just had a heart attack, you need medical intervention, or like, I don't know, your car broke down, you need to get it serviced to move on from that point. So that's important and an emergency. Then there's things that are important, but aren't an emergency. Like eating well, sleeping well, stress management, all the things that are going to lead to someone having a heart attack or not. But because if we eat poorly today or skip a gym workout today, or don't get enough sleep today, it doesn't seem like an emergency. They're not something that we have to do right now to continue to survive. But if we actually fail to act on those things, they will become emergencies in the future. Did I describe that as you remember it in the book?
It's like that and because it's in a little grid, right?
Yeah, it's in a grid.
The grid was explained to me, and they say I'm looking at a grid.
Yes.
In the audiobook, like I think when they describe like images and graphs and stuff, and they actually explain it. But it's you're right. It's that accumulative effect of things, and again, that's the difficulty and why people don't take it so seriously is because nothing of consequence happens
immediately.
And again, it's just like, oh, I had a heart attack out of nowhere, I had a stroke out of nowhere. But yeah, it's such an easy, again, I shouldn't say easy, simple. There's simple things to do and there's simple ways to figure it out. But again, if you don't have anything that's disruptive of your lifestyle, like what motive do you have to fix it aside from the fear of having a stroke or a heart attack? And we all know that a lot of people have the mentality of that'll never happen to me.
I think the fear of the unknown should be good enough here in that, I don't know if I have blood pressure issues, but if I did, these are the potential things that could happen to me, e.g. stroke out or heart attack at 40 when I don't even have the chance to prepare for it. Now, just quickly on the blood pressures. The cuffs, if you're going to go for the cuff, please make sure that obviously the cuff is the appropriate size, because that's one of the biggest problems is misdiagnosis due to cuff size irregularity. Or
how do people check they're getting the right size, Dean?
They'll just have a centimeter measurement on the cuff, and then you can measure the circumference of your arm. You're better off being too large on the cuff than you are being too small.
Do you have to use a leg cuff on your arms?
I just bought a big boy cuff. Yeah.
Did you actually have to buy a new cuff?
Yeah, I bought an extra large version.
Oh, look at you, big boy. So we like to wrap up our episodes when we remember with a be less shit tip, because our tagline for the podcast is how to be less shit. If you could send listeners home with one thing to remember, what might it be?
you didn't even prepare me for this. Do you know what? Do you know one of the best things that has completely changed my perspective and the way I consider and approach being in the, like I'm not a coach in the industry, but being in the industry, is we have a really good habit of saying you have a problem. We'll look at obese people or overweight people and we say you have a problem, and we have the solution. More often than not, I think it's like 70 to 80% of obese or overweight people have experienced some type of past trauma. More often than not, their size to them is a solution to something.
Do you mean emotional trauma?
It could be abuse. It could be like sexual abuse, physical abuse. It could be that their parents were alcoholics. So there's a questionnaire called, I think it's the ACE test or the ACE questionnaire. It's adverse childhood experiences, I believe it is. There's 10 questions on it. And there's questions like, did you come from a divorced family? Were any of your parents alcoholics? Did you have any, like it's a heavy questionnaire. And you just have to answer yes or no. And for every yes, you get a point. The more higher you score, the more likely you are to have adverse health reactions in your older years. So we used to hold a seminar called When It's Not About the Food, and we held it with a counselor who was an EMDR therapist. And she used to teach all this stuff about how to pick up for red flags and when to refer out. And they dealt with morbidly obese patients. And for example, there was a girl who, one of their patients, like say, for example, her nickname when she was growing up was Little Lucy. And from the age of like 3 or 4 years old, she's sexually abused. Being small to her is dangerous. You get rape victims, you get anything like that. And their size becomes a solution to something, whether they're consciously aware of it or not. More often than not, they're not. And you'll find that that's when people will like self-sabotage. If you get the really overweight clients and they reduce, like they'll lose a little bit of weight and then they'll self-sabotage and put it back on. And I think that mind shift from saying you've got a problem and we've got the solution is to ask what is this a solution for? It's same with addiction. Same with any type of addiction. Their addiction to drugs, alcohol, food, it's a solution to something. They are taking it for a reason. It's not a problem to them. Like it becomes a problem, but initially starts off with a solution to fix something or to dull something or to, suppress something. So I think approaching it a little bit more from that perspective, if people can start doing that more than saying you've got a problem and you need to be fixed, and just kind of like digging a little deeper and having a little bit more compassion as to why they're where they are in the first place, I think that'll change a lot of the way the fitness industry, I guess, markets and approaches things, because I personally believe that the industry creates it advertises to the industry, it markets to the industry, and it creates more of a divide between the industry and the people who need it. And I think if we can kind of shorten that gap a little bit better, we'll be able to serve a lot easier or a lot better than we are. It's kind of turning into a bit of a two-deck competition out here with like the industry just trying to promote to everyone else in the industry and try and be bigger, better, stronger, faster. Like it's just leaner.
That's a banging tip.
Yeah, thank you for that shit tip. I think
you're welcome.
Really helpful. Now, the next question is something worth sharing, and feel free to share anything you'd like, but perhaps you could share the name of this hypertension course so anyone who's interested can search it on Muscle Nerds.
Online hypertension course.
Perfect.
We're as creative as Dean.
Is that the name? Online hypertension course? Oh, get out.
It really does not have a name.
Okay.
And it'll be sold via Muscle Nerds website.
I had not even considered to name it anything other than a hypertension course. I mean, our program design course is called program design course, and our nutrition course is called nutrition course.
Okay, leave it at that. I love it when like a child names their teddy bear Teddy, or like their bunny rabbit bear or bunny rabbit toy bunny. So it's real creative.
Do we know if a human has ever named another human or child?
Well, you have a client called Human or something.
Human, yeah. But it's H-O-O-M-A-N. He does listen to this podcast too, so thank you, Human or Human.
All right, so if people were interested in the online hypertension course, hilarious, how could they find it or how could they contact you?
Okay, so at the moment it is, when's this being released, do you know?
End of April.
Oh, okay. So we're good. We're released. We are hoping by now. So if you just go to our website, www.musclenerds.net, and if you click in the menus, we've got, I think, online education is an option, maybe services, online education. I don't know. I'll have to review. And then just click on that and you'll find the hypertension course. You'll be able to buy it online. And you'll get instant access straight away. You'll have the material forever. It's all self-paced. There's about 13 and a half hours of content and a ton of resources. And it's all yours to implement and start saving lives.
True.
My next question is a would you rather.
Oh,
I like to come up.
no, yours fucked me up. I literally went through your highlights of them one day and I was like, I can't answer like half of these.
I need to go back and save the ones I've done in the last few months. I haven't saved them to my highlights in a while.
Oh, okay. I'm nervous.
Okay. I make these up on the spot and I like to make them relevant sometimes to the podcast. So would you rather never be able to check your blood pressure ever again? Or would you rather have to have a nipple on your forehead? You're able to have a fringe or cover it up with foundation or something, but you've got a little nip on your forehead or never be able to check your blood pressure. So you could have high blood pressure.
After everything that we've spoken about, I'm going to go with A. I'd rather never be able to take my blood pressure again. And I'll tell you why, because females traditionally run more hypotense than males, and it only really becomes a problem for us around menopause or post-menopause. So I would choose that because in my post-menopausal years, I hope I would have done enough
To relax.
Menopausal years to keep my blood pressure down.
Okay.
Yeah, females typically run a bit more hypotense. It's more of an issue for males. I didn't mention that earlier, but yeah, that was
all right.
Light compared to some of your other.
Oh, I feel like I need to go again then. But for listeners that don't know what hypotension is, it's the opposite of hyper, would just mean low blood pressure. Listeners and watchers, if you found value in the podcast, please subscribe, rate us, take a screenshot and tag us, Muscle Nerds, Flex Success, Dean and Lizzie, and share it with your friends. Share the love, help people not die.
And save your life.
Yeah, everyone who's got a blood pressure medication, don't do that. Everyone who's got a blood pressure machine, take a picture of that bitch with this podcast and post it up on IG. Yeah. I think the more we can create awareness of people that are actually doing this would be great too, because monkey see, monkey do.
Absolutely. And thank you for your time today, Zoe, and sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you. I feel very honored.